Good evening. I call this August 25th, 2026 meeting of the Morrisville Town Council to order. We ask those in attendance tonight to please silence your cell phones. Thank you to those here in person with us tonight, those watching via live stream, and those who are watching a recording of this meeting. Our town mission statement, which helps guide our decisions tonight and into the future, is connecting our diverse community to an enhanced quality of life through innovative programs and services. Officer Gold is our Sergeant-at-Arms for this evening's meeting. We thank you for your attendance and all of your peers out there. This evening, I'll be leading our invocation. As we gather this evening, I'd like to acknowledge what a full and busy week this has been for all of us. Our council and staff leaders devoted an entire Saturday to a summer retreat. We are meeting again tonight, and we will come together once again on Thursday for a work session. This rhythm of service is exactly what we signed up for when we ran for public office. It reflects our commitment to the people of Morrisville. We deeply appreciate the extra time, thought, and effort that our staff dedicate to preparing for and supporting each of these meetings. We are grateful for the opportunity to serve this great all-American community of Morrisville, and may our work tonight be thoughtful, productive, and guided by the best interests of our residents. All who are able, please stand as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we adopt tonight's agenda, Town Council policy is to review and ensure there are no conflicts of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with any items on the agenda. If you notice anything in the agenda that could be a conflict or look like one, please share that now. Seeing none, is there a motion and second to adopt this evening's regular agenda?
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
A motion from Mayor Potem Rabadi, a second from Councilmember Johnson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously 7-0. There are 7 items on our consent agenda. Approval of the July Town Council meeting minutes, resolution awarding badge and service sidearm to Sergeant Stephen Bailey, resolution and capital project ordinance amendment authorizing construction of the Sawmill Creek Stream Relocation and Greenway Project, resolution authorizing phase 1 of the design build delivery for the Fire Station number 2 relocation project, resolution authorizing the design build bridging delivery method for the Morrisville Senior Center, resolution and capital project ordinance amendment for phase 1 of the design build delivery for Church Street Park Field reconstruction project, and finally, resolution amending the public hearing date for the annexation of 808 Church Street and 0 Church Street. Would any member of council wish to pull any of these items for discussion? Or would there be a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. I'll second.
I have a motion from Mayor Potem Rabadi, a second from Councilmember Johnson to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that also carries unanimously 7-0. Next on the agenda is Morrisville Speaks public comment. Are there any speakers signed up? Ms. Kowalski.
Yes, we have Saran Sudram.
Okay. For those who have signed up to speak, please approach the microphone and begin by stating your name and residential address and direct your comments to the council. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to ensure everyone has a fair opportunity to share their thoughts. A timer will start after you state your name and address, and a buzzer will sound when your time is up. We appreciate your cooperation in helping us manage time fairly for all participants. The microphone is yours.
Good evening. My name is Saran Sandera. I come from 105 Hammondwood Place, Morrisville. And so, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council members. I'm Saran Sandera, a Morrisville resident and medical professional. I am here tonight to respectfully reiterate my request that the Town of Morrisville recognize October 2026 as Substance Use Prevention Awareness Month. I've already submitted the formal request for a proclamation within the appropriate time frame as well. The purpose is simple: to promote prevention of substance misuse, to promote awareness against nicotine addiction and vaping, particularly among young people, and to encourage residents who may need support to seek appropriate resources. I respectfully ask the council to support this proclamation. I would be happy to provide any further information the council seeks to know regarding this proclamation request. Thank you for your time and service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, Town Clerk?
No.
Okay. Thank you to everyone who has spoken. If anyone in the audience did not sign up and would like to address the council, please come forward to the microphone stand, state your name and residential address, and you'll have 3 minutes to share your comments. Would anyone like to take advantage of that opportunity? Okay. As a reminder, we encourage the submission of written comments as they offer a valuable way for community members to share their feedback. To submit written comments, please email publicinput@morrisvillenc.gov. Now we have 2 presentations this evening. We now invite Justin Rosser, Chief of Police, to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for this opportunity to come tonight to recognize the retirement of one of our sergeants, Sergeant Stephen Bailey. This is a bittersweet night for us because we always are sad to see one of our family members leave the agency, but it is well-deserved after such a long career in this profession. So I'm going to ask Sergeant Bailey if he would come on up. As he's making his way, I just want to tell you that as I took over as police chief, there are quite a few in the agency that I learned that I could rely upon. And Sergeant Bailey is definitely one of those for that senior leadership. And he leaves a lasting impact in our agency and our community. I think that's very evident by the ones in the agency that have showed up tonight to support him in his retirement. We just held a promotion process where that leadership, that mentorship that he's given to our folks in his time here really shone through. So he has helped us not only improve our agency, but further it and make it to where we can provide that much better service to our residents here in Morrisville. So I am extremely grateful for the sacrifices and the dedication that he has done for our agency and given to our agency. And I'm glad that I think he's going to come back in a reserve capacity so he can still help us out a little bit. I think I'm still trying to convince him of that. But after, over 30 years in law enforcement, this is a well-deserved recognition and definitely a well-deserved break from having to deal with the day-to-day stressors that this puts on us, and not only us, but our families. So his family is here tonight, and I thank y'all for being present too, because we don't get to this without them supporting us. I can tell you that. And it takes just as much impact on the family as it does the officers that are serving. So thank y'all too, as well for sticking with it and being there throughout this whole career and making sure that he had what he needed and sharing him with us so that we can, truly benefit from that experience that he brought to our agency and helped provide to our officers and help us grow. So tonight we have a couple of things to present. First off, we have a plaque from the town. And I didn't want to take it out too early because I probably would have broke it back there somewhere. So, and it reads, "The town of Morrisville, North Carolina, presented to Stephen Bailey recognition of your retirement and his 5 years of service to the town of Morrisville and his over 30 years of overall law enforcement service, dated September of 2026. So, sorry. And then, as you saw in the resolution you signed or you passed on consent tonight, I really appreciate that because one tradition we have in law enforcement is that we like to recognize them by presenting their badge and their gun to them after such a storied career. And that is one thing that we'll present tonight. So it is his handgun in a shadow box with our patch, and it's also engraved Sergeant Stephen Bailey, 1995 to 2026, his years of service to this profession. So I'll present that to you as well. So thank you very much for your service to the town and for everything you've done for us and will continue to do for us. So thank you. Thank you.
Chief, thank you. Kind of bittersweet, it really is. Trying not to cry. Just want to say thanks to everybody, especially my wife. I don't know if she's enjoying the retirement as much as I am. I tend to get on her nerves now that I'm around all the time, where I didn't used to be. My mom, who's always been there, she didn't care for the law enforcement too much because she worried all the time. But nonetheless, she supported me the entire time. To everybody with the Morrisville Police Department, thanks for sticking by me. Thanks for the guidance, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, my folks, my team. Hayden, thank you. Congratulations and good luck. Our Cary Police Department dispatchers, thank you all. We couldn't have done it without you. Y'all kept us safe, gave us guidance as well. So thank you for coming tonight. I think that's about it. Thank y'all.
Step up to the stage. We'd love to get a photo of you with staff and your family as well. Staff and family. So you'll just step up on the stage, and if you want to take the center, we'll have everybody gather around you.
Okay, we're glad to accompany you up there. Sure.
You may want to step down some onto this first stair.
This is a good day for you, I think.
If a couple of folks want to step down onto the first stair, just so you can make a couple of rows.
Let's have the sides come into the front row right here.
Yeah.
Come on over to the
Take a couple of steps forward. Yeah. Take a couple of steps forward, and then if a few folks on the outside edge want to come to these steps here, that way we're not spread so wide, but we come a little bit more narrow. I can get this officer to even step down. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to get on this first step here.
I would not prefer to be in the
I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to squeeze us in, and we've got more steps here.
Come on, Vic.
I think that's a good idea. All right, everybody just hold that pose. I'm gonna get a few vertical and get a few horizontal. All right, again, just hold this pose. Great, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
That's what I was going to do. I'm not going to back up there.
There we go.
I'd like to recognize Councilmember Johnson, our longest serving council member, to say a few words on behalf of the council.
So, yeah, before everyone, I know you all are heading out to celebrate and enjoy, so before you go, Sergeant Bailey, on behalf of the town council, thank you. Two little words that hold so much meaning. Thank you for your dedication and your professionalism. Is because of you that we are so proud of the Morrisville Police Department. So thank you for your 3 decades plus of public service And thank you for making us all proud of this fabulous organization. And now, go enjoy. Now is your time to relax, enjoy, kick up your feet. I got the opportunity to meet your family before the meeting started. So I told them thank you, but publicly I'm going to say again, thank you for supporting Sergeant Bailey and sharing him with us. We are forever grateful. So enjoy. This is the goal in life, to get to retirement. So congratulations. Thank you.
We'll give them a moment. At this time, we're going to invite Josh Michael, Planner 3, to the podium to take us through our next presentation. Sir?
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Town Council. Josh Michael, Planner 3. I'll be giving you an update on the Rental Assistance and Security Deposit Program. Just a reminder, we're still in the very early stages, but this will be your first glance at some of the metrics as well as some of the tweaks to the program that we have done over the first few months. So for the program rollout overview, Phase 1 was initiated in April of 2026. We launched it to just town employees initially. We also released a program overview to all town employees that had an eligibility calculator that was included in that. I also conducted 2 virtual information sessions for all staff that wanted to attend. We had approximately 30 attendees for each session. And then we also updated the town's affordable housing webpage. The graphic over to the right is just an image of the current affordable housing webpage. Phase 2 was initiated in May 2026, which expanded to Wake County Public School System employees in Morrisville schools and Wake County Public Sector employees. And for that, we did outreach emails sent to Wake County leadership and principals of the 2 Morrisville schools, which is Morrisville Elementary and Cedar Fork. This is an example of the program calculator that staff put together that was sent out, and it's also on the webpage. And essentially what this does is it just makes it pretty straightforward for you just to enter your household gross income, the number of people that live in your house, and then it could tell you what your potential subsidy could be. So the initial program metrics are listed here. So for the security deposit assistance, there were only 2 applications. One was eligible and assisted, another was ineligible. For the rental assistance program, there were 22 applications. 10 were Wake County Public School System, which were initially paused by Wake County. They are now active as of August the 10th. 1 Wake County employee that was denied because they weren't actually a Wake County employee, and 11 town employees. 1 was eligible and has been assisted. They received the subsidy. 3 remained open. 3 closed due to lack of response. 1 denied because they were over the AMI threshold. And then 3 were not actually town of Morrisville employees, even though they listed that they were. So for some of the metrics, processing time, what the goal for Neighbor Up was to respond to all the applicants within 2 business days. Same day was 8, 1 day was 6, 2 days was 6, a couple were beyond 2 days. Some of the key observations from Neighbor Up is that applicants outside the priority groups were applying. Some of the applicants just simply don't follow up. And then some applicants were already paying affordable rent, so they were already within that 30% of their income, or less than 30% of their income. As expected, we knew that we were going to learn as we went through this process. So here are some of the tweaks that we identified. The first was income verification. So early on, we had some that attempted to apply but did not yet have their first pay stub. So Neighbor Up's general protocol is to have 2 weeks of pay that they can look at. And so we met with the deputy town manager as well as HR and the planning director, and we figured out that it would be a good benefit or recruiting tool if somebody did get hired by any one of the 3 eligible tiers, whether it be Wake County Schools or Town of Morrisville or Wake County, that they could just present a HR letter which had what their salary would be. That way the neighbor would be able to assess their eligibility for AMI. Another issue that was identified was the lease term. Part of the programming built in by Neighbor Up and town staff is that we would make any eligible applicants that receive the subsidy reapply every 12 months per the contract, and to reassess their eligibility to make sure they fell within that AMI threshold. One of the issues that we ran into is that many times you get better lease terms if you sign a longer lease, 13 months, 18 months, which is great for the tenant because they're reducing their costs. It's also great for the program because that way the program dollars can go towards other folks. So what we said was that we tweaked the program so that the duration, Neighbor Up would hold the funds for the duration of that person's lease. They would still have to reapply within the 12 months, but regardless, they would get, let's say, hypothetically, when they reapplied after the 12 months, they were over the AMI threshold. This way, they would still get whatever lease they signed to pay out through the length of their initial application phase. So again, they still have to complete that income verification every 12 months. So this really just aligns more with the current rental market realities. Rent calculation. So the issue identified here was that base rent alone doesn't really capture total housing expense. We had a working session, I believe, the mayor as well as Councilmember Kessling talked about utilities and wanting to see how that kind of folded into everything, which is generally used for affordable housing. So the adjustment is that the subsidy is calculated using the full monthly housing obligation, including trash, sewer, which is pretty much mandatory in multifamily these days. They have the concierge trash. Utility fees, of course, will be included in the lease. We also require that with the apartment complexes in town that took advantage of that do offer workforce housing, Slater, Altarin. They also have to include those utility fees when they come up with their their 80% rent. The required monthly charges are tied to the unit. Any recurring costs billed directly by the property management company. And again, this just more accurately reflects the true cost burden and that 30% of income that we're trying to keep rent under. The final tweak, and this is really an extreme example, but we did encounter this early, and that was that a small number of the landlords in some of our multifamily don't accept third-party payments, which was a little surprising. So we had one case where an applicant actually applied to 2 units. Fortunately, one did not take the third-party payment, so fortunately they had another option. Staff did reach out to the property management company to ascertain why they didn't take this third-party payment. It seems pretty easy to do something like that, but since we did not get the answer that we wanted, they did have another option. But for future cases where we have an applicant that is going to be eligible, we want to make sure that they get that subsidy. So in the rare circumstance where they are in a position where they have identified a multifamily or a rental unit they want to rent, we will pay them the subsidy directly. Now, to try and mitigate that, I have been going around to every single major multifamily in town. I've done about 60 to 70% of the multifamily units so far, talked to the property management companies, some of the regional managers. I wrote a white paper kind of outlining the program and just trying to ascertain which ones do in fact. This information is relayed to Neighbor Up. As applicants come in, they can now guide eligible applicants to communities that do actually take the third-party payment. But again, what this does, if there is one of these situations where the community or the landlord doesn't take the third-party payment, the subsidy can be paid directly to the tenant. Again, I think this is going to be an extreme circumstance, probably not very often, but we wanted to set that up just in case that happens. Because obviously, if someone's going through the process of applying for this, and then also finding a community or finding a house or an apartment to rent, and then this is their last hurdle, that's not great. So we wanted to just have an extreme scenario where there is an option. So the next steps are Wake County coordination. Recent Wake County update is that they've confirmed the following. Town can proceed with the county employee applications already received. As I mentioned in one of the previous slides, they did want us to pause. They've coordinated internally with HR and communications, and Wake County will continue moving forward after meeting with town staff, which is actually on the 31st of this month. So the upcoming meeting is going to focus on finalizing coordinated communication to county employees, establishing shared messaging for HR and internal communication channels, reviewing program parameters, priority groups, and application workflows, and identifying any remaining administrative or verification questions. So that is the update I have for you all this evening. A couple of other interesting things. Although we still are early in the program, I will say that there's been a couple other municipalities, as well as the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, have reached out to staff to ask questions about what we're doing in Morrisville, which I think is very interesting. There's been a lot of interest in this program. Town of Apex has reached out. Dare County is interested. So it's very interesting, and I think very positive to see that type of feedback. And I'm happy to take any questions.
We'll begin with Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, followed by Councilmember Johnson, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Rabadi, please.
Well, thank you very much for this very comprehensive report. I really do like how you were able to identify an issue, have a proposed solution, and then do a slight adjustment so that we're still serving the population that we want to serve. It's not clear to me why we have not as much interest in the security deposit, because the income threshold is more generous with that. I don't know if that's just a promotional thing or awareness thing, or maybe people aren't just ready to sign a lease at this time. It might be simply timing of the year. That might be that. But did we put a maximum on the rental assistance in order to preserve some of the security deposit assistance, or is it all in one general fund and it's kind of first come, first served?
You're talking about for each program for the rental assistance versus security deposit?
Right.
Yeah, we didn't put a cap. What we said in one of the working sessions is that we would be flexible if one of the programs had much more interest, kind of like the rental assistance, which clearly does.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Then we would be flexible, and we haven't reached a point where the funding is not there. But I think that if that happens, we would just reallocate, move some of the money around as appropriate. And of course, then we would come back and report to the town council what's happened, and then you could perhaps adjust accordingly and maybe change the percentage or just allow it to be a flexible type of option.
Very good. One of the items that might be good if you could bring back is where we are on the spend for the total amount that we allocated in this for this activity. just so we know how many more, you know, like, it might be gone in a month, it might, you know, because we did put a pause in some of the applications. I'm sure once those are released, then we might hit our maximum amount that we've allocated for the calendar year. The other comment I have is about, we've opened it up first to Morrisville employees, and the leasing cycle is on a 12 to 15 month kind of cycle, and now we're going to release it, expand that scope to Wake County employees. How do we think about year 2 for ensuring that we still have priority to Morrisville employees? I don't think that you're going to necessarily have that answer, but it's very possible that we will have a program that supports Wake County employees and not Morrisville employees, unless we think about how do we ensure that we keep some priority with the applications for our town employees.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Councilmember Scroggins Johnson. And one of the working sessions, I think I showed some metrics of the number of employees that qualify at the 60% AMI. And it was about somewhere, I believe it was about 25 town employees, but that didn't take into account spouse income or family income. So I think it's important because of the budget, the money that's allocated for this program, to make sure that they're reaching those groups for people that really could use this subsidy. Simultaneously, I do understand, I get exactly what you're saying. So we'll certainly look at that.
I mean, we can't guarantee the mix, but at least we can think about, you know, are we still within this intent of our program kind of thing. So thank you very much. Very well done.
Councilmember Johnson, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Rabadi.
So thank you, Josh. Excellent presentation. So much. I was so much looking forward to an update to find out how it was working. I'm thrilled that we're starting to help some folks, and I see the Wake County piece is being reactivated. So maybe that'll add some more folks here that we're helping. So I'm happy about that. Thank you for the tweaks. Agree with all of those. That was the idea in the beginning, to kind of roll it out and then see what we needed to do to make adjustments. So thank you for that. The only question I had was about the third-party payments. I'm not opposed to that. Yeah, we need to have some kind of workaround. I'm kind of surprised to hear that, but that's okay. Are these payments made monthly then to the tenant?
Yes, they would be making, so if this extreme case occurred, they would be made monthly to the tenant. The tenant would then have to produce receipts to Neighbor Up monthly as well as a check and balance to keep that open, so.
Perfect. Okay, hopefully that we can.
Yeah.
You can convince all the other apartment complexes to
That is the goal.
to rely on us and Neighbor Up as solid income that we're not going to renege on. So, and that would alleviate that option. But thank you for doing a workaround.
That is the goal, absolutely, and we are putting pressure on these wonderful communities that we have in Morrisville. So I think just communication and education, that's one thing I've noticed with some of the multifamily is they need to be educated on the program, because there is sometimes an initial negative connotation with anything that's supporting a subsidy for someone, for some folks. And so we just need to make sure that the community, property managers and those people on staff understand what this program is.
Right, good, thank you. And congratulations on others taking notice and
Yeah,
wanting
that was really
to
great.
talk to you about how we all
Congratulations to you
established.
all. I
Yeah,
think
well,
that's-
you did the hard work, but anyhow, but thank you. That's very exciting. So hopefully this will be rolled out to others as well. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Rabadi, followed by myself.
Yeah, thank you for doing the heavy lifting on what's clearly a trend-setting project in the region. I'm really happy to see how well it's going. It did occur to me that there might be, in year 2, there might be people that were bound to a lease during year 1 that might want to move in year 2, so that there might be more employee uptake. I mean, I would imagine that would happen over the first 3 years. You know, that there would be that there would be people trickling in that just got out of the lease. So I agree that we definitely want to prioritize certainly Morrisville employees. And yeah, and I'm glad that the program is flexible enough and that you've been able to make the tweaks that are going to result in a better user experience. I'm just wondering, can NeighborUp steer people toward places that will take the third-party payment?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what the white paper that I'm handing out to the different properties and having those conversations with is to ascertain, are you, this is a great opportunity for, you have reliable tenants that are coming in, teachers, Wake County employees, town employees. So, you know, let's make this happen, but yeah.
And I'd love to see that white paper.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy
Thanks.
to share that.
I just want to share a comment, then it's Councilmember Kessling. Thank you very much. This is kind of our first rodeo in this space, so there's always going to be issues, and it sounds like you're addressing them really proactively and trying to make everyone come along with us. So I just want to say thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
Councilmember Kessling, followed by Councilmember Garamella.
Thank you for the presentation, as well as all of the resources on our affordable housing page. Got a lot on there, and that's really great. I love seeing all of that. Just had a couple of questions. I think you alluded to it, but what was the issue with Wake County employees?
Well,
More
we were told-
specifically?
Yeah, we were told to put a pause on the program temporarily. I think there were some legal, they wanted to just go through legal, make sure that everyone was on the same page. So it was more about just information gathering and making sure that they just understood exactly what was occurring for their employees.
Gotcha. And then on slide 7, I appreciate the that we're including utilities, but what I'm noticing on this, and I just wanted to make it into the record, that it looks like, and I guess maybe confirm this first, it does not include standalone utilities.
It does not.
Right, okay. But I am happy that we are including any sort of, I guess, any sort of obligation that comes from the property management company or the company that is dealing with the lease as well.
Yes.
And then, I can't remember which slide it was, but there was some of the applicants, it was an earlier slide, some of the applicants were already paying affordable rent. I was wondering if are they already in Morrisville, or are they somewhere else outside of Morrisville?
I'm not sure some of that. I'm not sure exactly the answer to that, Councilmember Kessling. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, what I was thinking about when we went over that slide was, okay, the applicant is already paying affordable rent. Are they paying that affordable rent in Wendell or Nightdale? And
Right.
that's why they're not eligible. Or are they in Morrisville and they already have a pretty good deal on rent? And so they wouldn't qualify.
Right. No, that's an excellent point, and I can follow up with NeighborUp to ascertain what that situation was. That is definitely relevant.
Because I do think, I guess, just elaborating on this point further for the record, I think the point was to get people into Morrisville, certainly our town employees, you know, giving them the opportunity to live here. So, appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Garamella, followed by Councilmember Patel.
Hi, Josh, as always, great presentation. A couple of questions is, in these applications, are most of the people staying in apartments or like townhomes? Or what is the split? Like, because rental assistance can be for anything.
It can be for anything. I don't know what the current living situation is for these applicants. That's not something that we're asking for on the intake forms that NeighborUp is asking, so I wouldn't be able to answer that.
No, okay, but it would be also good to know because it helps a different kind of a clientele too.
Right.
And then the other question is, how could anyone say the three people who are not town employees?
My understanding is that they worked in Morrisville, and therefore they maybe just thought that they might be a town employee. I couldn't even, yeah.
Yeah, because we have like 215, so I someone to say that.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last is it's like you talked about security deposit. Is NeighborUp coming up with some kind of a proposal, like as a backing, saying, hey, these people are all vetted from us, and, you know, when they're not accepting security deposits, that, you know, town and we are behind it, you know, and supporting it. Does that information be given to the end user, like who is the renter? As the owner, like, you know, owner who is renting it?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but.
So like, I'm trying to understand, like, if I'm going to rent, say you are the owner of the house, I'll take a third-party check and give it to you, so they have no clue what it is, you know, and obviously everyone will be if they can't afford a security deposit, how can they afford the loan is what that comes out, you know, as the first.
Right.
So does NeighborUp and the town of Morrisville come up with supporting documentation?
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we already had that scenario occur. So that is where that documentation from HR or or NeighborUp or a staff member, me, can kind of go in and educate, because you're right. There's this strange juxtaposition where you can receive a subsidy because you're under the income, but you might not be at the income to be eligible to move into the apartment complex because they have their own private standards. So we did encounter that. Most of that is remedied with a letter or with support from NeighborUp or HR. So that seems to satisfy. What I've encountered is that many of the multifamilies do have workarounds for that because they want someone to live there. The third-party payment is the one that we're still kind of scratching our heads over, but that one does seem to be easier to navigate.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Patel, please.
First of all, thank you for the presentation and the information that you have included in here. One question I have is how much money actually has been distributed so far in the program and how much we have committed for the year?
I think that was the question that Mayor Pro Tem Rabadi was asking to get some actual monetary figures. So we don't have a true idea since there are applications that are being processed right now. Since there's some people that are kind of waiting to find the communities that they're going to move into. We have the one that I believe it's for the one subsidy for the rental assistance, it's about roughly $10,000 for that one applicant. So you look and see, which is when we presented that how many people this would actually help. If you get an $800 subsidy per month, that adds up for one person with a budget of $166,000. So that is data that we'll certainly have available to town council once these initial stages kind of flesh out a little bit more and we get people that have gone through the process of not just applying, but actually are living in the communities. And that brings up one of the other things when we talked about the initiation of this program and when folks want to move, they still have to Councilmember Kessling's point, they still have an apartment community or a place they're already living and they can't just cut the lease. No. So when they apply and they are eligible for the program, NeighborUp is holding their spot because until they move into the community. So it takes a little bit of time to really get a good sense of how much is going to be allocated for this first cycle. But yeah. So that's not a straight answer, but it's one that we'll have more data for probably in the next round when we update you all.
Sounds good. And then you had you had one slide somewhere that talks about what happens if a beneficiary actually becomes ineligible during the leaves. Can you go to that?
Oh, when I think that was on the lease term, yeah.
Right. So, hypothetically speaking, and I don't think that you would have encountered this, but if somebody becomes ineligible after 2 months, do we still continue? Okay.
We are obligated to pay their rent for the duration of the term of their lease.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And when you say pay the rent, you mean contribute to the subsidy?
Pay the subsidy. I
Not just pay
apologize,
the
yeah.
rent. And we've all had a chance to ask our questions and make our comments. We're going to do a second round now. Councilmember Kesslin.
Councilmember Garamella made me think about something. If we can go back to the town employees slide. So your response that the not actual town of Morrisville employees, yeah, why was that? Why did we get 3 of those? But folks that work in Morrisville, that thought that they were eligible. I think that does highlight a need, for non-public workers as well. However, staying within the bounds of this program for now. But I'm just pointing out that if that's any indication that there's a need, there's a need. And then one thing that I was thinking about as well was voluntary testimonials. So if folks that are receiving these subsidies are, willing to help explain how it's helped them be a part of their community, be a part of our community, I think that would be beneficial for the program specifically, to help them be supported and help the public support the program.
Yeah, I agree. We can certainly, I will talk to Neighbor Up about that. They can talk to the eligible applicants about that, knowing that this is a very sensitive area for some folks. But I do agree that that would be very beneficial to the program as a whole.
And just to sum up, I think you presented in the past that Neighbor Up has people come in, and this is just one of the options that they present to them if they're eligible. So there's already an audience that's coming into them for help, and we just happen to be one thing. But if we can also get people to know that they can search us out, that will also help.
Yes, that's an excellent point, Mayor. One of the reasons that the Neighbor Up was selected through the RFQ process is because of their overall services, that even if these 3 town of Morrisville employees, for example, perhaps they can find another subsidy or help with Neighbor Up because of all the multifaceted services that Neighbor Up already offers. So that's an excellent point.
Okay, wonderful. I don't see any other questions. You mentioned that the next time that you report, do you know when that might be?
That'll be within another 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do quarterly for the first year.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Thanks. We're a little early for our break, so I'll continue, if that's okay. Yep, we'll just keep going at this point. So at this point, we have one action item this evening. We now invite Brett Martin, Transportation Project Manager, to the podium.
All right, I'm a little shorter than Josh, so let me get situated here.
It's not just a little, really.
Yeah.
That's okay.
A lot shorter than Josh.
I think we all are, except maybe a sheep.
All right, thank you, Mayor Colley and members of Town Council. Brett Martin here, Transportation Project Manager with the town. As a follow-up to your July 30th work session at which you received an update from Campo staff on the progress of the Wake Bus Rapid Transit Western Corridor extension from downtown Cary to Research Triangle Park, on that planning process and the locally preferred alternative derived from that process. At your general direction, staff produced a letter to submit to Campo laying out some concerns with the recommended alignment. This is in lieu of a resolution to endorse the locally preferred alternative as originally presented. The letter was drafted as a response to the 30-day public comment period for the Campo Executive Board's consideration of the locally preferred alternative and in response to the first phase of public engagement for the 2035 Wake Bus Plan update to solicit input on bus service priorities throughout Wake County. Staff received some feedback on the letter from town council members, which I'm happy to address if desired, or if, those council members can speak to them if they prefer. I do want to note that I think we should add an additional Campo staff person to the carbon copy list on the letter, which was the person who came to present to you, Ben Howe, which I did not include. So I do want to note that maybe we should include him. This is an action item that really just requires a head nod or a series of head nods to indicate consensus among town council. But if there is not consensus or discomfort with that approach, then certainly it can be handled with a motion and a vote. So I'll put it back in your hands there.
So I'd like to recognize anyone who'd like to speak towards their concerns, and if no one does, I'll just ask you to summarize them for us. I'll recognize Councilmember Johnson.
So Brett, first of all, thank you. You probably heard me say this before. It's hard to create a document. It's easier to critique it. So I'm in the easy seat. So thank you for the hard work. When we had this conversation a month ago, my concern was the support and endorsement kind of language. So I would ask and that's why I had a problem with the original resolution. And in the letter, in number 2, item number 2 in the letter, I don't know if you can bring the letter up, but there are 2 references to strongly supports and supports. And I would respectfully ask that we change that wording to recognizes, because I do I'm talking about me personally, so the others will have to weigh in, but there were several of us that kind of had a heartburn with endorsing and supporting. So I do recognize the overall concept. I'm just not strongly supportive of it. So that would be the 2 biggest changes I would ask council to consider.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councilmember Johnson. So I did receive your comments and the language that you provided via email. So I totally understand what you're saying. In that first sentence, the intent of that is to be agnostic to the alignment. So it can be worded in a better way, though, to convey. So what it's trying to say is the council supports some BRT investment between downtown Cary and RTP, not that one that is the regionally recommended one. So I was just going to suggest to get at what you're getting at, to make it clearer, that we say that Morrisville Town Council supports, it doesn't have to say strongly, but strongly supports or just supports the overall concept of a BRT extension between downtown Cary and Research Triangle Park and the benefits it would provide to the region at large.
So thank you for that, because you are correct. I read this several times, and it could give the impression that there was support of the current alignment, which is what I definitely do not want. I am not going to be supportive of language like that.
Yes.
So I appreciate the alternate. You either need to say it again or put it up in writing so I can see it. But
Yeah, I can say it again really slowly. The Morrisville Town Council supports the overall concept of a BRT extension between downtown Cary and Research Triangle Park and the benefits it would provide to the region at large.
and you are suggesting that for that first sentence.
For the first sentence.
Perfect.
The other language edits that you suggested where it would just change recognize, and I think in the last sentence there,
Correct.
I don't think there's a problem there. I think that's totally fine.
Okay, I
Yeah,
am
so-
much more comfortable with that. I
Yeah.
will mull that because I think others are going to weigh in, but thank you for that, Brett. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Scargis Johnson?
So I'm going to echo Councilmember Johnson's concern about that, number 2, and I do like your proposed statement about support the concept of because it's like we understand and appreciate the concept, but this next paragraph really digs in and says, we really want something for Morrisville. That is our main, concern, is that it's a value to the region, but Morrisville is kind of needing of something a little more. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
So can we give head nods on that first sentence as proposed to be changed? We all comfortable with that? And if you could clarify, I think you got that. So thank you very much for making that adjustment. Thank you for bringing that forward. And you and Councilmember Johnson had a little bit more understanding of that second thing, so that you kind of shortcut that. So if you could tell us what sentence would also change towards the end and what it would read.
So in the last sentence of that first paragraph under number 2, which is the second overall comment, Councilmember Johnson suggested that we change where it says the town supports to the town recognizes.
Okay?
And that's
Are
it.
we all supportive of that adjustment as well? Head nods? First, okay, so don't quite have that yet. We have a couple of comments. I first saw Councilmember Kessling, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Rabati.
Are we just talking about the one sentence? We good on that?
So I think we had consensus on the first sentence, which makes it a little more agnostic. And then the last sentence in that same paragraph, the town recognizes the regionally recommended alignment rather than saying supports. It'd just be a one-word change for that second one. Gotcha. Is my understanding.
Right. Supports becomes recognizes.
Sounds good. So I know I had several questions in my email reply. I'll try to condense it down a little bit. I can't remember if you had mentioned it or if it was just in the presentation or in one of the reports, but there's the additional BRT funding. I'm wondering if it would be worth saying, for that one specifically, if the funding becomes available, we push for the dedicated transit lanes or other transit priority treatments. I think that and/or the Davis Drive fixed routes, both potentially contributing to the success of the BRT, and that both would benefit Morrisville.
Yeah, so I got Councilmember Kessling's comments as well, so I can speak to that, just for the benefit of everyone. So you did ask if additional BRT funding becomes available through Campo. We would like to explore whether the funding could incorporate dedicated transit lanes or other transit priority treatments into the Western Corridor project. I think in my response back to that, I just explained that the adopted 2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Campo's MTP, includes dedicated lanes for the western extension within the 2045 horizon. So it would be sometime between 2035 and 2045. So it's in there, it's planned, there's some type of mechanism that says, yes, there's a goal to have that there. But I think one thing we have to be careful about is there's also other BRT corridors in the MTP, and one of them is Davis Drive. And that is also in the 2045 horizon. And so my only fear with kind of getting that specific is those are going to be competing against each other for bus lanes. And do you want to signal that you want bus lanes specifically for the western extension? And then, of course, we're not saying anything at all about a future Davis Drive BRT that is in the MTP in the 2045 horizon. And I just don't, understanding the council's tone from July 30th, I just don't know that that's the best step to take.
Sure. I don't have any other questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Rapati, please.
So with changing supports to recognizes in that last sentence in number 2, I don't think this sentence makes sense anymore. The town recognizes the regionally recommended alignment within the context of supporting its implementation versus not implementing any BRT corridor through Morrisville at all. That sentence doesn't make sense.
I recognize it's a little convoluted, but you can
No,
read into
it's-
it that we're
no,
in
it's
favor of
nonsense
having
now.
something.
No, but it doesn't say that now, is my
It's
point.
maybe hard to get there.
I mean, what we're trying to say in that sentence, as I understand it, is that it's better than nothing, like we recognize that it's better than nothing. But when we say, like it makes sense when we say we support it, we support the plan. But I don't think it works if, like, are we recognizing the recommended alignment? That doesn't make sense. There's got to be another word there, like, or we need to rewrite the sentence, but.
Yeah, I will just speak to the intent there. The intent is basically to signal, hey, if it's this or nothing at all, we support something, right?
Yes.
If it just comes down to this. So that's really what it's trying to signal there. I just took what Councilmember Johnson suggested and said, okay, that'll be fine. But
If I could suggest, with the alternative being not implementing any BRT corridor through Morrisville at all, maybe the town does not oppose the recommended alignment or something like that.
So I would be, personally, I wanted to take that sentence out, but I didn't think that that would fly with the council. So that's why I was trying to figure out a way to reword it. But I would be fine with telling Brett to reword that sentence and to make it as smooth as he can, and whatever he comes up with, I would be okay with.
Oh, that's fine. I didn't know that was an option, sure.
But thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Rabati. I understand what you're getting at with that. So.
Sorry, just a moment. How about the town recognizes the value of the regionally recommended alignment, particularly in relation to having an implemented BRT corridor rather than having no BRT service in Morrisville at all?
Yeah.
I think
That- is
I'm
that
fine
close?
with, Brett massaging that sentence, so yes, that would be fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay, so that's maybe a starting point. And how would we go forward with that, and still, when is this letter due?
So you have some time. I don't even know that the 30-day public comment period for the LPA consideration is open yet. Because I don't know if Campo staff is staying on the original schedule that they were going to be on for the executive board to consider the LPA. But there's some time.
Okay.
So, and the first phase of public engagement for the bus plan that's open right now is going to be open well into September as well. So Now, when I say there's time, that doesn't mean there's months and months and months. But, yeah,
Okay, so either we'll bring it back in a couple of weeks at the next meeting for something really brief, to just sort of do the head nods again, or perhaps via email if necessary.
yeah, I will not be at the next meeting.
Okay,
Just, I'll be out of town.
thank goodness we have a really powerful staff.
So,
I'd like to recognize the town manager.
Yeah, I think they're arranged for that to still come back to you.
yeah.
Are we all comfortable going forward with the first sentence being changed? And we're good on that, and then the last sentence of that paragraph will come back to us for approval again.
I would tell you to just put it on consent for the next meeting. And if we have a problem with it, we'll take it off and discuss it, or hopefully discuss it before the meeting so we can, but I would be okay with that, quite frankly.
Looking for head nods from the council on that one? Sound okay? Okay?
Can I
Yeah,
just
of
make
course.
one more? Thank you, Brett. Thank you. You did a fabulous job in the letter. You've accomplished what I personally wanted. I think it is really important for me that we advocate for our residents and their needs. And so you have captured that beautifully in the letter. So I appreciate that very much, because if we're not advocating, nobody is. So, you know, that was my concern, you know, a couple of weeks ago too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in any case, we will be getting a fixed route in Morrisville for the first time.
Yes.
Which is very nice. So
Hopefully
that's-
two.
And hopefully two eventually, but in that case, one would be a BRT right away. And we can continue to encourage our residents to talk to the Wake Transit Input Survey right now, in which they can ask for a fixed route along Davis, because that would be the first step towards getting a BRT
Right.
along that corridor. So if you want fixed route bus service on Davis, and I think our town will benefit, please reach out and check online for that. And we've been posting that in our social media.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Anything else, sir?
That's it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, great job. Thank you very much. Okay, now we can move into a break, I believe. Actually, we can pretty much not, well, this is 30 minutes, so we'll take a break at this time. So let's take a 15-minute break. Let's please reconvene at 24 after, and then we'll hear from Chief Roster. Two new items this evening. There we go. We now invite Justin Rosser, Chief of Police, to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. And tonight, I would like to go through the proposed update or new alarm ordinance. It has some new things in here that we're putting before you tonight to kind of present this as a new ordinance for our false alarms that we have in town. I told Kimberly, technology is not my friend sometimes. There we go. So before I get started, I wanted to kind of highlight what the purpose behind this ordinance is. It is to try to incentivize folks to ensure that their alarms are working properly in the town, that they're getting regular maintenance and things like that I'll cover in this ordinance. But this is to help try to gain compliance in the fact of they're maintaining their alarms and ensuring that we're not getting false alarms throughout the town, which cost us a lot of resources a lot of times when we're having several alarms at one place. So this ordinance here is not meant to be a penalty. It's meant to gain that compliance from folks and ensure that they're maintaining their alarms the way that they should, and that we're, reducing our staff time as far as having to respond to alarms when we shouldn't be because the maintenance hadn't been done on them. So we have an alarm ordinance in place. This one just takes the place of it, and it just clarifies a few things, gives a few better definitions and some things we'll go through. So this one is intended to replace the current alarm ordinances in our book of ordinances. We have taken this, and it's based on the model ordinance that was designed by the North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police. And I will say that in my research for this, municipalities across the state have adopted some form of this ordinance that was designed by North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police. So it's been in practice for quite a while. So we based this ordinance on that model. Again, it aligns with the ordinances for our neighboring jurisdictions, and you'll find the fines that are associated with this are also in alignment with our neighboring jurisdictions as well. We're going to provide some clear definitions and responsibilities for a few folks in there, and you have the ordinance there, so there are quite a few definitions, but the two primary ones I want to concentrate on tonight where we really define the responsibilities was with the alarm owners and the alarm companies themselves. And then we're going to clearly define the violations of the ordinance. So this ordinance really defines what is a violation that people need to be aware of. We also go further to define the enforcement provisions within the ordinance. And then we've added or we've updated the appeals process that goes along with the violations to ensure that people have an appeals process, and it ensures that we're fairly assessing fines and that there wasn't something outside their control or something that really affected those false alarms. So we'll go through that. There we go. So for the alarm users, we put in there quite a bit of their responsibility. Some of the highlights from that is, one, maintain their alarm system to prevent false alarms. That falls to the alarm users to ensure that their alarm system is properly maintained. We want to ensure that their employees or anybody using that alarm are receiving training from the alarm company, which you'll see in their responsibilities here in just a minute, because that training is important. It helps them make sure that they're doing the proper steps when they do have an alarm activation to try to reduce some of these false alarms. Ensure that the system's properly operating, maintained, inspected, receives regular maintenance. That's the responsibility of alarm users here in town to make sure their alarm companies are actually maintaining those alarms for them. This one's a big one for us, is respond promptly when notified of an activation. This is one thing that really takes resources away from the police department, is when we do have an alarm activation, it could take, up to an hour, a couple of hours to get a hold of somebody on the phone to get them to respond to where that alarm's taking place at. So we want to make sure we're getting a prompt response if there is an activation. And then not manually activating an alarm for any reason unless there's actually an event happening there. So that's typically, when we're talking about that, is not just the burglar alarms, but the panic alarms that you'll see in a lot of places where they have trip buttons, to ensure that they're taking, the proper procedures and protocols to make sure that the button's not too accessible where it's accidentally being bumped, or, you know, people are accidentally activating it all the time because it's not placed properly or they didn't provide those trainings. So those are the alarm user responsibilities that we've highlighted here. And then the other major player in this obviously is the alarm company. So the first thing, and one of the more important things, is we want to make sure they not only obtain but maintain all the required licenses with North Carolina Alarm Board. I'm sure council is aware that in order to operate an alarm system here in North Carolina, you have to comply with those board's requirements. Provide alarm user contact information. Again, we want that in a reasonable time, but there are times where we have alarm activations and they can't tell us who the person is that we need to be talking with or interacting with for the alarm. So it just continues to be an issue. So we want to make sure they're providing us with that information and they're maintaining that as well. We want them providing instructions and training related to the system to the alarm users to make sure they're able to operate that in an effective manner. The next one's a big one for us. We want them to verify alarms before they ask for our assistance. That's something that's common practice across the board, minus emergencies. You know, we have two different alarms when we're typically talking about these, right? We have burglar alarms, which is like windows, doors, things like that, where a strong wind could blow a door and that would cause an activation. But then we have panic buttons and things that are activated by typically a human being sitting there at that desk. So that one we would go to automatically. But when we're talking about the burglar type alarms, we want them to verify the alarm before they ask for our assistance, just to get some consistency. They're also required to provide their user information to Cary Police Department Communications because they are the ones that dispatch for us. We need to make sure they're in regular communication with them. And then the next one, the last one, you would think this would happen, but sometimes it doesn't. Communicating cancellations of alarms quickly to our officers. So, you know, that's not just a best practices, that's a safety measure as well, because if you talk about some of these panic alarms, sometimes we're responding emergency traffic to those because we believe there's something serious going on. So we want to make sure they're canceling us in a timely manner so we're not running lights and sirens if we don't have to, or we're not responding to those locations. So those are the responsibilities this ordinance puts on the alarm company. So to go into the violations themselves, basically any unlawful activation of the alarm system would be a violation when it becomes a false alarm. We also make it, and these are consistent with some of the ones that were in our previous ordinance as well, unlawful to install, maintain, or use local alarm systems with something that's audible from the exterior of the structure for more than 15 minutes. Obviously, I think all of us that live here in town don't want to hear an alarm going off for 30, 45 minutes, you know, making sure that they have that and they're in compliance with it. Also, we make it to where they cannot install, maintain, or use automatic dial protection devices that reports or causes to be reported any recorded message to the police department. So for anybody that may not be familiar with that, that would be, they're not going through a 24/7 monitoring company. So they've installed basically an alarm system themselves that now it automatically dials, like say Cary Police Department, because they're the ones that dispatch for us, or in a worst case scenario, it dials the police department, which may be after hours. We want them to make sure they're using a 24/7 alarm company, like one of the ones that are maintained through the alarm board. And then the final one here is the biggest one, is that anytime we have 3 or more false alarms within a 12-month period at a location, and that now becomes a violation of the ordinance. And we want to put that responsibility and almost back on the alarm operators and the companies to make sure they're maintaining their things so we're not getting so many false alarms. And I'll cover here in just a minute how we've taken a tiered approach to this, but anything after 3 would now become a violation of the ordinance. It's important to highlight for the enforcement provision of this, this still remains a civil violation. It's going to continue to be a non-criminal, which means that it will have fines attached to it, but it will not be a misdemeanor or infraction of any kind for them to violate the ordinance. Those civil penalties, again, will be assessed through civil penalties or fines. And what we have done is, I know this was done in the past, but then there was some inconsistency in the last ordinance with maybe an amount left in there. All amounts have now been moved to the fee schedule, which I think the council has already approved at some point, but we're going to leave those in the fee schedule because then we have the ability, as council knows, to adjust those and not have to come back to you for an ordinance change. So that's why all those were moved to the fee schedule. We've also added in the ability for them, they have to pay within 30 days, but we've added late fees in there for that if they do not meet that 30-day requirement. And then we have taken the right to discontinue our law enforcement responses if they do not pay their penalties within that 30-day period, and that would stay in effect until they do come in compliance with that. Now, I know that may cause some concerns, so I want to, again, reiterate what this entails. This is for those alarms where I'm talking about where the door may blow open, things of that nature. Any panic alarm where we believe that a human being is physically activating that alarm, we will not discontinue that response. That will not be the case. It would be for nuisance alarms. I mean, sometimes we have vacant buildings where there's still alarm systems on there. So that's going to be a case-by-case basis. That's why we left in there that we may. If it continues to be a nuisance and we know for a fact that there's no risk to the public, then we would discontinue that response. But that would be something that I would take into account and make that decision before it ever happens. So I want to put council's mind at ease a little bit on that would be something we would look into before we ever took that action. But we wanted to make sure we left that ability in here in case we ever do have that vacant building that the alarm just continuously goes off and we know that there's nobody occupying that building or any risk to the public. It's important with this that we put an appeals process in here. The appeals process is very simple. They would appeal to the town manager. Their appeal must be filed within 10 days. Failure to give notice of appeal basically constitutes a waiver of their right to contest the penalty. And then the town manager would have three options here of whether he affirms the violation, reduces the penalties, or could waive the penalties. I talked to you just a minute ago about the fee schedule. This one is consistent with jurisdictions around us. So after 3 alarms, alarms 4 through 5 would go to a $100 penalty. 6 through 8 would trigger a different penalty, which goes up to $200. Alarms 9 through 10 would go to a $300, and then anything over 11 plus, which we're starting to see that creates a huge issue for us. So we want to encourage that compliance. It would now go to a $500 fine. Now, before we institute any new ordinance, we want to make sure that the public is aware of it. We want to make sure our residents are aware of it. We don't want to spring this on them. So I wanted to highlight what we're going to do as not only the police department, but as a town to educate people before this takes effect. First thing we're going to do is we'll notify the alarm users and alarm companies that we're aware of in town. We'll be sure to notify them in writing. Miss Dana does that typically from the police department, so she'll be sending those out. And we'll be making them aware of not only the ordinance change, but the fee changes as well, so that they understand that. I'm also going to be working with Aaron and the comms team to make sure we're conducting outreach through our social media, website, all the avenues that we have available to us to make sure we're doing our due diligence to make sure people are aware of this ordinance change before it takes effect. Again, it's going to be posted on the website. And then I would ask council that we make this effective 60 days after your approval, because that would give us the time we need to make sure we're able to do those education efforts throughout the community to make sure they're aware of this alarm ordinance change. So that's what I have for you tonight. I will be glad to take any questions that council may have.
Mayor Pro Tem Rabadi, followed by Councilmember Patel, please.
So I know you said all that to put my mind at ease about the discontinuing of the responding to the alarms, but I have to tell you that my mind is not at ease about that. That provision makes me very uncomfortable. It has nothing to do with trusting your judgment of the situation. It's just that first of all, I feel like that might expose the town to some liability. That would be one concern definitely that I would have. But also, I just think that even if an alarm has gone off in a vacant building, there's no way to say that this time there's not someone breaking in, there's not someone in trouble, there's not a fire. I mean, I think it would take a lot more convincing for me to be truly comfortable with that.
Can understand. And, you know, maybe the vacant building, that is an example. Another one would be, in the middle of the day, we get alarms at businesses that we know are open. People are going in and out for business, but we're getting an alarm activation because their back door is open, right? So, but they still have panic alarms in place in the building in case there is something going on where they really need us. They can press the panic button, but they just aren't maintaining their sensors, things of that nature that is causing us to have to respond, stand by for a long period of time, and it's draining resources. I can get your concern, Mayor Pro Tem, but that's kind of where we're coming from on it.
Surely, though, the new fee schedules, when they kick in, that's a false alarm. If there's an alarm going off and there's no problem, that's a false alarm. Surely the new fee schedules would take care of quite a bit of that.
I believe it will. And, you know, I think that we're looking into this, and I understand your concern, but this would be very, very rare. To be honest with you, I don't know of any municipality that's actually discontinued responses. If they have, it's like one or two. We're not talking a drastic number, and we're talking about when they do get up to that, you know, they're not paying their penalties or their 11 plus false alarms at the one location is the only time we would start to consider this. And again, that would be something that I would have a discussion with before we made any decision to discontinue. I just don't want council to feel like we're going to discontinue just to do it. This would be in extreme circumstances. And not only that, before I ever made this decision, I would have multiple meetings with that alarm user before we ever made that decision. I just want to put council, you've seen how I'm involved with the community. This wouldn't be just a letter. This would be me sitting down with that alarm user to tell them, listen, we have responded X amount of times here, and every time it's been a false alarm, nobody's been here. Here's the issues. I need you to work with me so we can fix this before I ever discontinue the alarm response.
Is that something that we could be notified about when it's happening?
Absolutely, because I mean, CAD data is, or CAD things are public records, so I'd be glad to make council aware of that. I can communicate that through, because I think we already send that to you, Town Manager, the alarms. If we don't, we can.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I could certainly share if we reach that point. Again, it's incredible. I agree with the chief. It's incredibly rare it gets to that point, but I think it's an important tool to have in the toolbox when it comes to some of these, you know, these rare but meaningful repeat offenders that just basically go, don't care, keep coming, or, you know.
I hear you, but I'm really not comfortable with a provision like that ever going into effect and me not knowing it. But is there any kind of liability? Doesn't that open us up to liability if we don't respond to an alarm and there's an actual problem?
I'll start and let Lori add. You know, we don't make a specific commitment necessarily to provide, we'll be there in a period of time on an alarm. We agree to respond to an alarm, and this is any police department. This is generally within the context of available resources and priority calls for service and other things. So I don't believe we take on liability by not responding to an alarm.
And the other part of that is that the owner of the building, whoever has the alarm that is in place, is going to know ahead of time that this is not going to happen any longer. I mean, we don't have a duty to the general public who might wander into an abandoned building or a closed building. So that type of notice is going to take away from any potential liability. The other thing I would say is, just from a practical perspective, if the police department is having to respond to these things, and we know it's a known problem, we know it's someone that's not responded, and they are being prevented or delayed from dealing with actual issues, I think that has to be taken into consideration and weighing that as well.
If I may add as well, as the chief mentioned, this is a model policy, or based on a model policy from the North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police. When this model policy got put in place, it was vetted by the Chiefs Association Council. There was a lot of conversation with the North Carolina Alarm Licensing Board and many others, and of course, town attorneys really throughout the state. And that question was brought up, and it's a very good question, and it was addressed for the reasons that were mentioned. So this policy, or a version of it, including that provision, is in place in many communities across the state, and it has proven to be a deterrence. I don't know of any agency that has actually discontinued, but it is, as the manager mentioned, a tool in the toolbox if it gets to that point.
Okay, I've got to say, I'm still not thrilled about it, but I hear you. Thank you.
Councilmember Patel, please.
So the discontinuation of response, that is only if they have failed to make payment within 30 days, right? It's not that we are tired of them, those false alarms, and we are discontinuing the service. But we continually keep getting the false alarms and they haven't paid the penalty.
Right. That's the alarm, the ordinance itself doesn't trigger till they're non-compliant with their penalties that they've been assessed. However, we would still have the conversation. It wouldn't come to the discontinuance part, but that's conversations we're having with them when they start getting above, 4 to 5, maybe that's just an issue with their alarm system. We start getting into 6, 7, 8. That's when we're going to start having meetings with them and say, hey, this is becoming excessive. We need to make sure we're working with you to help you address your alarm issues in your business or house, whichever one it is, typically it's businesses.
And have we had any of such issues so far?
So when I came in, this will be, I think the first quarter and first half year will be a good measure for us, because that's one reason why we rewrote this ordinance, was there was inconsistency in how we were tracking this. So what we were finding is the ordinance itself said that it was on a quarterly basis, so it was resetting itself every quarter. So it was very hard for people to get to that threshold. However, we were still having multiple problems because it would reset every 3 months. And then now you get 5 alarms, okay? So when we go to this 12-month basis, I think we'll have a better measure to answer your question of how rampant it is in the community. And it's not too bad. This is really geared towards us addressing those kind of problem ones that we deal with on a consistent basis. And, that's what this is really geared towards, as far as getting that compliance from them and ensuring that they're maintaining and doing what they should with their alarm system. But I think that 12-month, I'd say 6 to 12-month period will give us a good gauge of where we're at as a town.
Okay, but so hypothetically speaking, let's say somebody has reached that threshold where their penalty is now $500 per occurrence, and it still continues to occur, and they keep paying the penalties on time. Would we still consider discontinuation, or because the way I'm reading it is it was tied to not paying civil penalties assessed within 30 days.
Right. In the ordinance itself, it is, but as I think that legal is kind of highlighting, town management has as well, we have a responsibility, but that would be a conversation that I'd be having with them. We haven't seen that. I don't believe we'll see that, because most people want to comply with this. But if we got to that many where they just continue to pay the penalties, that would be a conversation I'd be having with a business owner.
Okay. So as long as when something like this does occur and we are notified, I'm fine with it.
Councilmember Garamella, followed by Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Chief, I'm a data guy. Do we have any data in the last 1 year, how many times we had these issues?
That's what I was covering with Councilmember Patel, that we do have the data for false alarms and things, and I can get that for you. But we don't track the violations itself, because those violations were resetting every quarter versus now we're going to a 12-month basis. So if that makes sense. So if somebody had 2 in, let's say, January, right? And then in January, February, March, and then in April, it was reset, and then they have 2 more. And then we go in 2 more months, then we have 2 more. That's actually 6 violations, but because of the way we were tracking it currently, it would reset itself. So it's still a problem for us, but it wasn't being tracked because it wasn't a violation of ordinance. Now that it's a 12-month period, that would now show 6 alarm activations false alarms that we now would be tracking if they're in violation of the ordinance.
Okay, so we are changing the way we are going to be doing, it's a new way of calibrating.
Right, it's a new way of, it's a new ordinance, so it would require that tracking for me to say truly where we're at on violations. I could pull the data and give you a rough estimate, but that, it would really be just an estimate.
So should we not like wait for 6 months and see how that calibration is coming to before even we put this into effect?
Well, I can't enforce it until the ordinance is in effect.
No, at least we know, because if you're seeing a lot, then the data should prove it too. And right now you have the data, but it's not properly calibrated, that's all it is.
And I think that, and I can understand that, but I think this is not necessarily because we have a lot of them. This is, like I said before, this is trying to encourage and gain compliance when we are having them. I don't think we have a huge problem with it. We have those problems, but we're not going to see a drastic number, right? This is for those ones that just don't want to comply or maintain their alarm system. So it may be one or two in the town as we go along, right? That's what this is geared towards. It's not for me to say we've got just this rampant problem going on. This is to get those people into compliance that are not maintaining their alarm system.
And I want to be very clear, these alarms are the house alarms, or what kind of alarms are we talking?
Any alarm in town. But what we do find is that people with homes typically upkeep their alarms. And so.
Does it include fire alarms too?
No.
That's the reason I'm asking.
No, this is only on our side. So Chief Dooley would, I believe, have to put a separate ordinance in place for his. Possibly, I'm not sure. I have to ask legal on that one.
Because the reason I'm bringing that, if alarm is like, it's not saying which particular alarm we are talking about. It doesn't specify that in the ordinance itself. So at SNC, very common, people pull the fire alarm, and at least 7-8 times a year that happens. Breckenridge, I've seen at least 2-3 times people, the kids run around and pull it. So it's as an HOA, like, I don't know, we'll get the violation, but we don't know who pulled it. So I'm just asking, that's the reason I wanted to ensure that the wordings.
So that would require a separate ordinance, because in this ordinance here, when we go to the definitions section for the alarm systems, it specifically references law enforcement alarms, and it actually excludes motor vehicle, boat alarms, fire alarms, domestic violence alarms, and alarms designed to elicit a medical response, so like those alert bracelets and things. So this ordinance itself in the definitions actually leaves those out. So it would not include the fire alarms you were referencing at HSNC and some of those.
Okay. So the kids go around and then they're like, oh, this red thing. I've seen so many. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson, please.
So, thank you, Chief. I just have a couple of questions about some of the specifics, and one is the appeals. And 10 days it says 10 days from notice of civil penalty. So what does that mean? I mean, is that the date of the letter that was sent?
It would be the date that they received the letter.
The date they received the letter?
Yes.
Okay, because 10 days seems kind of short. I don't know, it just seems kind of short to me. I don't know why. Is there a reason why it's 10 days? Why 10? Why not 15?
That's what, to be honest, that's one piece that we took from the model ordinance that's been tried across the state. So I personally wouldn't have any heartburn over changing that number, but that's what was in the model ordinance itself. Because if we don't do it, it would need to be, in my mind, right, it would need to be before 30 days, because that's when the penalties start being assessed. So I think that's more the reason why the 10 days was there, because then that gives it time for them to process it, for town manager to make a decision, and then the penalties would be assessed after that.
Okay, and do we have an appeals process now?
I would have to look at the old ordinance. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember one.
Because it just, 10 days just seem, I'm thinking, especially now that we're talking about homeowners, you know, a business, you would think there's always somebody present. And hopefully somebody's reading the mail and opening the mail but, you know, for a resident who may be on vacation, may be away, maybe, I don't know, I need to think that through some more. And if you think that through some more and come up with something, that'd be fabulous too. But appeals concerns me. And then just to clarify, the fees, those were per occurrence, right, on that chart?
Right, well, once you get to the next level, it would be, so 3 to 4, that would trigger the $100, but then once you get to the next one, per occurrence, it would trigger the next
Correct.
fee.
Okay, good. And then you said this would all take effect within 60 days of council adopting, and that concerns me a little bit too. That's a lot of people to educate in 60 days.
So I was thinking about that tonight, actually, and I would propose this to council, because that's just a recommendation that I made. If maybe we just go with January 1st, because that would start a new 12-month period for us. It would also give me a little more time to do the education piece. So I put the 60 days in there, but I do agree with you. We could do some more education, so maybe January 1st would be a more appropriate date, and that would start a new year for us.
Okay, thank you. I like that because, yeah, and then the last question has to do with, you talked about the fact that some of these alarms are kind of regulated or they fall on, and what'd you call it again? Now I forget. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
You said some of these companies they have their alarms registered with,
Yes, ma'am.
with who again?
So the North Carolina Alarm Board, they're required to register with them.
Okay, so, but you also said not everybody does that, and some people don't use a 24/7.
Right.
So, I guess, so what I'm getting, how do you know who's out there in the business world that has an alarm?
So the majority of your businesses in town would use a 24/7 monitoring company. Even your residents do, because they do typically need to be registered with the alarm board for it to be installed. The ones we run into is when people do their own installations. There are alarm systems out there that have those dial pads that when there's an activation, it is programmed and it's supposed to call either, Carry Communications, and sometimes that's why I say it's just inconsistent. That's why we wanted to make sure in the ordinance it says not to use those, because they could put the police department number in there, they could put town hall number in, thinking they're going to get the police, but they don't. That's why we put that in the ordinance to, again, encourage that compliance to use the ones that are registered with the alarm board that are 24/7 monitoring. They're the companies that do go to Carry Communications and ensure that they get a response from us, or fire in that matter.
Okay, so you're comfortable with being able to communicate with every business out there?
No, we're going to communicate with the ones we know have an alarm system. The ones we've dealt with in the past, those we already have on file because we have been tracking the alarms. We can send those letters out pretty easily. The majority of this education is going to be done through social media outlets, through our website, things of that nature is where the majority of this education is going to take place.
Okay.
And we can always contact the alarm board and say, hey, where's our alarm systems in Morrisville? They can send that to us.
Okay, those are all the questions I have right now. Thank you, appreciate it.
Councilmember Patel, did you have a follow-up or something?
Yes, I do have a follow-up question, couple of follow-up questions, Chief. I would like to understand what the current policies are for each of these. For example, appeals. What is the current duration of, minimum duration of appeals? Same thing with penalties. You say it resets every quarter.
Yes.
But do we still have the same number of, same threshold? So 1, 2, 3, first, no, it's not.
I would not recommend it because the problem we're seeing is that by doing it by quarter, we're not encouraging that compliance.
Oh, no, I just want to understand what it is currently.
So it's currently kind of back and forth on it. So the ordinance itself says it's quarterly and it's $100 per violation. That's what's still in the ordinance. However, the 1 through 11 that I gave you that's already in the fee schedule with a different amount attached to it. That's why I said there was some confusion with our department on which one am I enforcing. So we haven't been, I'll be honest, we haven't been enforcing this for a while because there is that inconsistency. And this is one other reason why I need this ordinance in place, because I can't enforce anything right now because there's just inconsistency between the fee schedule and the ordinance itself. So this will clarify that. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and I would also like to see some data. I know you said that you can't get the data because it resets, but if we still keep data, we can probably tell how many false alarms we have had in a year, regardless of whether it reset at certain duration every quarter or not.
I can do some research and bring that back to council
If you can.
or send it to council. I just want to preface that by saying that I can't ensure that the data is 100% correct because it depends on how Cary has coded those in their CAD system and things like that. So there may be some false alarms that I missed along the way that we would catch if this ordinance is in place, if that makes sense. But I can come up with a roundabout, a good figure of what we have for false alarms and if that would have triggered a violation of this ordinance, if that's something council would like to see.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Chief.
I had just two quick thoughts. If you're thinking about resetting it on January 1st, you might run into that same thing, like a new company in November and December has a lot, and then you reset it. So maybe a rolling 12 months or something like that. Also, the Chamber of Commerce and our small business might have a good list of all the businesses and just blast it through them, and I'm sure they'd be very happy to help out because it's helping their community as well.
Thank you, Mayor. That was one of the ones on my list to contact, so thank you.
I don't see anything else, so when do you plan on bringing this back, and what changes might you bring, given this conversation?
So I think that for next steps, I would like to hear, council wants to see the data. Did I hear that correctly from council? No?
It'd be great to know just sort of a general idea, if you could aggregate a couple of quarters.
Okay, and then the other thing I would need if I was going to bring it back is kind of from council, the 10-day period that Councilmember Johnson brought up, the comfort you have with that, or if you wanted it adjusted. Again, keeping in mind that I would like to keep it before 30 days before the penalties start.
Yeah, I have one more question. If they want to appeal, do they come to the public safety committee and appeal process?
So no, it's to the town manager.
So this does not go through that channel, like we get for the violation of those cars and.
So as a reminder, the PSAC used to hear appeals on parking tickets, but when we did some research, they were never authorized to do that, and it was not in their charter. So we've adjusted that they review them and make a recommendation to the chief of police. So in this case, if there's an appeal of an alarm, it would come to me as the way it's written, and that's the way it's written in most models.
And that's designed to take me out of the loop because our department's the one that's sending the letter saying they're in violation. We want that to go to the town manager so they can review that. And that's something we would set up with IT to make sure there's a place on the website for those appeals to actually go through to the town manager.
I would add on the appeal to answer your other question, the current ordinance does have in a section of the appeals made to the town manager. So this doesn't change where the appeal goes in the proposed ordinance compared to the current ordinance.
I would ask Councilman Johnson, would 10 business days meet your need?
So what is it currently, John?
Currently, the appeals to the town manager, and it's any owner of a premise subject to civil penalty within 30 days after notification of such penalty, appeal to the town manager. So it's 30 days now. The chief's point is that the fine starts after 30 days, so there needs to be some processing time. So what I'm hearing the chief say is something less than that would give him time to do the processing.
2 business days is essentially, 10 business days is 2 weeks.
10 days just does not seem long enough. How many appeals have we had?
We've gone 2 liquidations.
Exactly.
So
I've heard 0 in 3 years, and I'm not aware of one occurring since I've been here.
Okay, but yet we've not been enforcing it either, so.
Fair.
So it's gonna change now. I just think 10 is too short, but we can all mull that over and come back in 2 weeks. And
Okay.
going from 30 to 10 is a big jump. That's,
So first I'll recognize Councilmember Kessling, then Mayor Potem Rabadi.
So I've attended PSAC when they do the parking ticket violation appeals, that sort of thing. I don't know if when I would have attended, if it was different from the new way we're doing it with the recommendation, but I was wondering if it was out of the question to have a recommendation from PSAC for the appeal, similar to how the parking tickets are done.
I have some concern with that. I think they're similar, but not the same. You know, parking tickets are a much smaller fine typically, and again, we intentionally, you know, they're hearing that, I think, as a courtesy. I don't know that I would recommend that for alarms. I don't think it fits necessarily with PSAC. There, you know, the questions that may be asked or the appeals that may be made could be technical in nature. And so I think that, I don't know that PSAC would necessarily be the place I would recommend for that.
Understood.
And I would rely on Lori on this, but I don't think that would have to be spelled out in the ordinance, because the town manager, if for some reason sometime we try to go that route, could let them review it before he made his final decision. Lori, I don't know if that needs to be spelled out in the ordinance.
No, if it's just a review process and the final decision rested with the town manager, you could implement that process if you wanted at a later date.
Mayor Potem Rabadi, please.
Oh, 15 business days would be 3 weeks, and then that would still give you 5 business days of processing time. Would that be enough time? How much processing time do you think we need?
That would be fine. That would be fine. I just want council's, you know, whatever's good with council, we can change that. Like I said, I just need it before 30 days.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Councilmember Patel, please.
So the question I have is, you said you don't want 30 days because you need processing time for the fines. What is the harm in delaying that penalty to start of the penalty to say 6 weeks or 8 weeks?
So we would freeze it once we received this before, until the town manager made the recommendation or made determination on which way we're going to go with this. The problem is, if they send it to me on the 30th day, they're actually in violation or coming up on violation. So we're going to run into too much issue, I believe. While I don't think we'll have a ton of these that are going to reach the level of like discontinuing response, I think we are going to see some increase in this piece. So now it arrives on day 31, they're going to say, well, I mailed it on day 30, it got to you on day, you see what I'm saying? So we want to be a little bit well before that 30-day mark, so there is no inconsistency there, because at day 31, they're now in violation of the ordinance, which means that they are being assessed those penalties.
But my question is, what's the harm in extending that day 30 violation window to day 45 day?
Because I just don't think that that would get that desired effect that we're looking for. Plus, I would have to let finance speak on their end on penalties and things. I know 30 days is consistent with other things we have in place. I don't know if that affects finance, but for me, I think 30 days is very fair for them to come in compliance with the penalties that they've been assessed. But
I think we just want everyone to play nice in the sandbox and comply and just make sure their alarms are working.
Yeah,
If they're not going to do it at 30 days, they're not going to do it at 45.
That's true. I'm just wondering if we're shortening 30-day period because of that in terms of appeals process.
To be honest, with this ordinance and it having the desired effect that we want it to have, those will go down and hopefully be zero one day, to where we're not assessing any penalties, because they're now in compliance and they're doing what we were asking them to do from the start. That's the goal.
Councilmember Kesslin, please.
Was the 30 days calendar days or business days?
Just 30 days.
30 calendar days. I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Rabati's point about 15 business days, but that is 21 calendar days. And I think maybe whatever's the critical kind of window between 30 days and whatever date it is, whether it's 15 days, 15 business days or 10 days or 10 business days, you know, what's your best judgment on that, I would say?
We can live with any of those recommendations. I think 15 business days, we're getting to the point where that's where we need to probably cut it off. But we can work with that.
Thank you.
Well, we do like to get in the midst of it. So
fine.
hopefully you have what you need.
I do, so I've heard adjust to 15 days. I think the only last thing we need to see from council is, I know Mayor Pro Tem brought up the discontinuance of response. Any changes that council needs to see in that area before I bring it back to you?
I'm okay with as written. I know that probably won't be needing it, but having it out there as a possible outcome will maybe help compliance. Councilmember Johnson.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, I totally recognize and acknowledge her concerns with that, and I would agree with that.